Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle Haas. The book that started it all. Can you believe it's been 2 years since we got WandaVision? Back in early 2021, the start of the comic book boom, West Coast Avengers number 45, the book that was supposed to take us all to the moon. This is the one. This is the one that started it all. And here we are now in March of 2023. Does anybody even buy comic books anymore? Does anybody even want this White Vision West Coast Avengers book? Take a moment. Do you guys hear that? Let's just listen for a second. That right there is the sound of buyers in the comic book collecting market. Absolutely zilch. Absolutely nada. There is nothing going on. It's a struggle right now. It's a struggle. What am I even going to talk about in this video here today? Well, there's actually kind of a lot that we need to talk about. Of course, we need to talk about Papa Pal, the federal interest rate hike that happened yesterday. Talk about how that had an effect on some of the markets out there, like the S&P 500 and the Bitcoin price. Of course, these things have a lot to do with comic books. I'm kidding, but kind of not kidding. There's actually a lot of correlation that we need to talk about. And then I also kind of want to talk about, sort of this recent change in the heritage auction format and how that affected this past week's, weekly auctions and a lot of the prices for the sales of comic books. And you can see how delicate this market can actually be and what those prices, those sold things, spoilers, they were very, very low, what those things might do to the values of comic books moving forward and creating sort of this downward pressure in the market. And then I kind of want to just shoot from the hip a little bit, talk a little bit about the market, give some predictions kind of moving forward and thinking about what are the next few months going to look like in the hobby. But before I get into it, if you guys could drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, help support the channel, doing those things I appreciate. Also, my Kickstarter. We are now 2 weeks away from the Kickstarter being done. There's still time to hop on the bandwagon. A few tiers have been sold out already, but there are still good books available. I am very, very proud of the work. And I got the cover right there, hanging up behind me. So very, very cool stuff. But let us get into this video here today. Of course, yesterday we had the federal interest rate hike, another 0.25 basis points. We are now sitting at that 5% range. And you can even read from kind of the sentiment in a lot of these headlines. Fed hikes rates by a 0.25 percentage point indicates increases are near an end. And you can kind of get the sense that, some people in the markets think that we are, at least if not out of the woods, we're starting to see the clearing in the forest. And, that seemed to have a lot of an effect on what the markets have done. Obviously, the S&P had a little bit of a boost today. Markets really, really like when things are predictable. Similarly, Bitcoin up a whopping, 5% basically today. I mean, Bitcoin has been a little bit on a tear for multiple reasons due to the fact that, there's a lot of volatility with the banking system right now. So a lot of people are thinking, hey, this fiat currency, we've got to get out of this stuff, SVB Bank, things like that, going to the toilet. So we got to, buy a bunch of Bitcoin. They also are looking at, the predictability of the interest rates and what those correlations have a lot to do. Now, you're probably asking yourselves, Swag, why are you talking about this stuff? This is a comic book YouTube channel. Well, we have to talk about this stuff because there's still a lot of correlation in some of these things with the cryptocurrency and the S&P and the perceived wealth of all the people who are involved in these markets and how that kind of trickles over into sort of the collectible space and things like comic books. So, when people think that they're doing very, very well, in their stock portfolio or their crypto portfolio, they're thinking to themselves, oh, I have all this equity. I have, all this, money I can spend. Let me go pick up some of these comic books. Let me go pick up some Rolex watches. Let me go pick up, whatever other collectible markets that they're interested in. And that has a lot to do with the inflation of some of these prices. But with that all being said, even though the market right now is feeling a little more dovish overall to what is going on in the future, I mean, we're still clearly not out of the woods yet. And I don't know about you guys, but right now in the comic book market, it feels like nothing is going on. I mean, not a lot of sales are happening, at least anecdotally speaking, when I talk to a lot of, consignment pages or sellers or people who have, larger eBay stores, they talk about how generally speaking, their sales have been down. I mean, of course, it's all, subjective. One person might be doing really well. This might be someone's best month versus another person's, worst month. But generally speaking, this is sort of the sentiment I'm kind of feeling. This weekend, I'm actually going to be going to WonderCon, and I'm really excited to, check it out. I'm going to get a sense of, kind of boots on the ground, what people are feeling at that show. Of course, I'll be making some content. I'll be talking to some dealers and things like that. Let me know in the comments. Do you guys want me to do another sort of state of the market, talk to dealers type of video? I was thinking of, I always like getting their perspective, but I was thinking of changing it up. I thought some different topics of conversation might be interesting. But let's kind of bring it back here again. Markets right now, just not really, popping is the best way I can put it. Even in the new comic book market, a lot of people sort of pulling back on their, FOCs and new comics and stuff like that. Definitely feels like even, new comics, as far as like the publishers are concerned, are seemingly not selling nearly as much as they were selling in the previous last 2 years. And of course, we've had this conversation on the channel multiple times. Again, 2023 is going to be a tough year for all markets, for all entertainment mediums to turn a profit. I mean, it's going to be really, really difficult, and that's why we're seeing a lot of cancellation of titles. We're seeing the MCU push out a lot of movies. We're seeing I wouldn't be surprised if we start to hear official cancellations of some of the MCU projects, because that's kind of where we're going in this market. But all of that being said, with this apathy, with this negativity, with this fear, I mean, now is a really great time to buy. I mean, I know that's kind of the meme. People have been saying like, oh, now is a great time to buy for the last, 6, 7, 8 months. And, at a certain point, if you keep saying now is a good time to buy and you keep buying on the way down, you would definitely be feeling like, well, obviously now wasn't the time to buy, because now is the time to buy. And maybe, a month from now, that will be the now time to buy. And then 2 months from now, that will be the now time to buy. This is the problem with some of these markets, is that, markets can be irrational longer than you can be solvent, right? That's sort of the, kind of the famous saying. I mean, you can continually buy the dip, and keep going all the way down, to Mephisto's realm with it. But, at a certain point, it'd be better if you were kind of, buying the bottom and then incrementally buying your way to the top. Because I think one of the issues with buying now is that if you're somebody who is buying now, you have to be able to hold it for at least the next couple years, right? There's no easy, Echo the Dolphin flipping, books for what you buy, this month, it's going to easily sell next month. I mean, I think that's one of the hard problems. This is why, when you're in a bull market, everything is so easy to buy. You don't have as much apprehension to buy a book that is on its way up, because that even if you overpay for it, by 20%, next month you can sell it, for 30% over the FMV and at least make that 10% equity. Whereas now, if you buy it, it's just going to sit on eBay for a long time. And that's really one of the issues, is that, everyone only has so much liquidity, only so much capital that you can invest in certain books at a certain time. And, buying is the fun part. We all want to be able to buy, and you can't really buy unless A, you're Jeff Bezos and you're made of money, or B, you're able to kind of sell off some of the stuff in your collection in order to have the hobby pay for itself. Or, maybe you're just somebody who is like a true collector, and all you do is buy, and, you're just sitting on, 1,000 AF-15s. I mean, that might be the case. But before I get into predictions of where I think that the market is going to be going and, embarrass myself, because obviously I'm going to probably get it wrong, I did want to talk a little bit about the Heritage Auction new sort of weekly format. If you guys don't know, obviously Heritage Auction, they sell comic books and collectibles all the time, every single week. And before, their weekly comic book auction used to be every Sunday night and then every Monday night. And it would be a 2-day auction, and it would just be kind of like alphabetical. Essentially, it'd start with a bunch of Action Comics and things like that, and then it would go through Amazing Spider-Man, and then X-Men would always be at the end of it. Well, recently they changed their format to be that it's going to be Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday, and they're actually splitting it up where Sunday night is going to be all Golden Age books, Monday night is going to be all Silver Age books, and then Tuesday is going to be all Bronze Age books. And I believe that this last week was the first time that they did it. And let me just tell you, it was an absolute dumpster fire as far as the comic book prices and values are concerned, because, anything that got sold on Tuesday, I think that they probably had like half as many watchers or people that were thinking about, the Heritage Auction that day, because a lot of the Bronze Age stuff got beat up. And on top of that, a lot of just, general prices got beat up, because now you're sort of diluting, whoever is watching watching at the time, because now only the people who are interested in Golden Age will be on Sunday, and then only the people who are interested in Silver Age will be on Monday, and you don't have sort of this cross-pollination, which I think is important because, you might be a hardcore Golden Age collector, but if you see a Silver Age book, being sold at a good price, you might throw a couple bids in it, and, that might actually increase the book to hit its fair market value or even go above its fair market value. But it didn't seem like there was a lot of viewership on this last auction, and that really hurt the values of a lot of these comic books that went for sale. Here I have a few that are pulled up that basically all of these sort of hit their, if not like calendar low, I mean, maybe even their last couple year low. This right here, Fantastic 449 at the CGC 4.0, sold for $444. That is the lowest price that this book has sold in this grade since 2020. Now, some of the bears out there might have been predicting that this was going to be an inevitability. I know a lot of people in the comments have made mention that they think that we're going to go back to 2018 prices. I'm still not convinced of that. I mean, anything is possible, but it seems to me that the auction format had more to do with the low prices than, sort of the organic nature of, the macroeconomic market. I could be wrong on that, but that's just sort of my theory. Some other books that sold, at record lows, here are this Wolverine limited series #1. I mean, this is a book that always sells, and this $552 price point is, one of the lowest prices. Maybe it's not the lowest that it's been in the last 3 years, but certainly one of the lowest. And I think it's, definitely a sign that in this particular auction, you saw lowest prices, basically all across the board. I mean, for most books here, this Avengers 5.0 selling for $810. That's a really, really good price. This Daredevil 131, this 9.6 selling for $780. That's basically the record low for this book since 2020. And then here, this X-Men #1, a raw copy. Look at this, $2,600. I mean, that is a fantastic price. Granted, this one, apparently is apparent, and it's probably a 0.5, but, we're still talking about X-Men #1 for $2,600, even at a 0.5 grade. I think that is absolutely worth the price that, whoever was able to snag that one. And again, I think a lot of these books sort of slipped through the cracks due to the format change. But, outside of the raw book right there, that X-Men #1, those graded prices are going to be, put into GPA, and those are going to have, sort of that downward pressure, that cascading effect into the average, 90-day moving or the average values of a lot of the comic books that we see there. And then that might have an effect on the fair market value moving forward. But speaking of moving forward, where are we going from here? Well, again, it's really impossible to make predictions at this point of where we're going to be with comic books, in these next 6 months or so. Where is the bottom? When I started my index, the goal of it was to see if we can figure out a bottom for comic books. Like, when is going to be a good time to sort of, in a vacuum sense, buy back into a lot of these key books that we love. I mean, granted, it's not a perfect system, because really at the end of the day, all that matters is what you find a book for. I mean, it's not that like, you can always buy FMV on any given day. A lot of times it's just like, hey, I see a good deal, I'm going to buy it. If it's selling around the 2020 price or a little bit above the 2020 price, that's probably going to be a good buy. It's probably not going to go much lower than that. This is definitely a good entry point. But, I've wanted to kind of figure out when the actual bottom in sort of a macro sense is going to be for the comic book market. And I, again, think it has a lot to do with kind of the macroeconomic factors, with the, interest rates and things like that. It's looking like this is getting close to the end of the rate hikes. That seems to be what a lot of the market is predicting. Again, these predictions change in any given month, based on, the sentiment of Jerome Powell and whatever actual inflation is. It looks like in May, there's going to be one more meeting for the Fed. They might raise it another 0.25 basis points. I don't think that they're going to go up to 0.5. I think that would cause too much fear in the market if all of a sudden it was increased by that much. So it looks like it'll go to 0.25. And then, they might sit at 5.25, or they may do it one more time after that. I think the next one after that is in June or July. And then once they get to 5.5, assuming that inflation isn't too sticky, it feels like they'll probably put a pause there. And a lot of people are even predicting right now that they're actually going to start cutting interest rates this year. Now, the Fed has said for a long time they're not going to do that. But, if they keep causing, these crazy sort of bank collapses to occur, they might have to put a pause, or they might get, pressured, politically to put a pause on a lot of this stuff. And again, I say all that to say this: I think when we stop seeing these rate hikes, and maybe even if they start to cut, that will certainly have an effect in, the prices of comic books and the prices of collectibles and the prices of all of these things in the market. I mean, they might choose to have high inflation over a recession. And even if we decide to go with high inflation, or we even have high inflation, I mean, that's going to inflate a lot of the values of comic books once again. But, I really do think that May is going to be a big turning point for the comic book market due to what happens at that Fed meeting and that interest rate hike. And on top of that, that's also going to be the release of Guardians of the Galaxy #3. And, if Guardians 3 is able to kind of inject some life and enthusiasm in a comic book market and a superhero film market that right now is very much lacking in enthusiasm, if that movie can kind of excite comic collectors once again, we're going to see a lot more movement in the market. There's going to be a lot more buyers. Then that's going to kind of lead into summer. People are going to be excited to spend money in the summer. We're going to have things like San Diego Comic-Con. A lot of the other cons are going to pop up. There's going to be announcements. There's going to be hype. And that might, kind of set us on the course for prices to start inflating once again, which again, I say, now probably is a really good time to at least pick up, maybe one or two keys that you're eyeing. I think right now, when we're feeling a lot of this sort of apathy, when we're not really, having a lot of hype in the market, and we're seeing some of those prices, like even, with the Heritage Auction kind of switching up, their format, a lot of these things are falling through the cracks. I really think that this is probably a good time to at least pull the trigger on one book. I mean, I don't think you need to go all in, but you should probably pick up a key here and there. And I think that you'll probably be very happy that you did. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. That was me just sort of talking about, kind of what's going on in the markets, how it relates to comic books. Let me know what you guys think. Where do you guys think we are? Are we at the bottom? Is now a good time to buy? I mean, I feel like that's the meme. Now is a good time to buy. It's like, it's always a good time to buy. It's been a good time to buy. And it's probably going to be a good time to buy for the next 6 months or so. And speaking of a good time to buy, remember my comic book, Sanity, Kickstarter, still going on. Link in the description. Definitely go check it out. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe. See you all in the next video.